Okay, just a second. Denise doesn't see herself, but she's here. Everybody wave at Denise. We'll be right with you. A small technical difficulty here, which we haven't had in a long time. Her computer froze on her. So we're going to have, yeah, go out and come back, Denise. But anyway, welcome to another edition of Win TV. Y'all know how we do. We play it by ear. It's not normally like this, but it happens. It's going to come, Denise. Come over here. I'm getting ready to bring her over here for a minute. Add this to your stream and take you out.
Right, boy. Is this like Murphy's Law Day or something? What is happening? I can't get it together. But anyway, thank you all for being here. This is another edition of Win TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes. And as I said, I hope that you have had a chance to read a copy, the most recent copy of the Washington Informer, which is available on newsstands, or if not, read the edition online at washingtoninformer.com. And this is our cover of this week's issue. And of course, this is Earth Day. Yesterday was Earth Day. And so we are so excited to once again have what we believe is our fifth edition of our Earth Day special supplement, coordinated by our special issues editor, Chantella Sherman, who will be with us in a little bit. And so we're going to dedicate most of our show today to Earth Day. But, you know, when we talk about the Earth and its impact on the Earth, we're also talking about the issue of health. So we're going to be speaking with folks from Bluerock, who will be with us, Bluerock Care, who will be with us a little bit later on today during this segment to talk about this new healthcare facility that's here in Washington, D.C. You know, this has been quite a news week in Washington. Beginning, of course, with the guilty verdict trial. There were three guilty verdicts as it relates to Derek Chauvin, the Minnesota police officer who was responsible for the death of George Floyd. And I think America is still in shock. For the first time in recent history have we seen a police officer actually held accountable for the death of a Black man, or Black woman for that matter. And so we're not celebrating necessarily, as Reverend Sharpton said, that another person is going to prison, especially when it's not going to bring George Floyd back. But at least it appears as though there is justice in the United States for Black people. And we're hanging on to that and hoping that we'll see justice in many other cases. And you know as well, the House voted this week to support our statehood bill for Washington, D.C. to become the 51st state. We are quite elated here in the nation's capital. We'll be doing a show next week with an exceptional producer who's put together a great video on the history of statehood and why statehood is important. And we look forward to sharing that with you. But you can visit our Facebook or Twitter pages right now to see that video that was produced and circulated by the DC Office of Cable Television, Film, and Entertainment. And it's a great video because so many people are still asking, why does DC need statehood? It's all there. And for those of us who are Washingtonians, we know that this fight has been going on forever. And it's a fight that's worth fighting. And for you all, and if you're outside of the city, to learn more about, and we hopefully will get your support. And, you know, President Biden reached his 200 million vaccines in the first 100 days, as he promised, 200 million vaccines. And I'm sure many of us that are on this call today have had our vaccines, but we are recommending that once you've done the research, you're satisfied with what you've heard, that you don't hesitate. And now even the youngest, 16-year-olds and above, can get a vaccine. So we would urge you so that if we're going to get back to any sense of normalcy, that we go ahead and take that. And it's not a big step. It's a little step, because it's a little needle that goes into your arm that you don't even feel. And whether you do it once or twice, you know, we're having some problems with Johnson & Johnson right now, but the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines are available and are being distributed. We want the folks out there in Prince George's County, particularly and in the state of Maryland, where we are beginning to see spikes in the with COVID-19, to go ahead and do what you've got to do to make sure that your state stays safe. And because we don't like seeing those spikes with our neighbors that are so close to us, because we want you to be safe. And last but not least, you know, we're going to share with you, the Washington Informer presented its 39th annual Spelling Bee just a couple of weeks ago. We've been very secretive about who won the Spelling Bee this year, and we were so happy that we were able to present it once again. The Spelling Bee normally is a big event. It's live, parents, teachers, everybody attends, but this was a virtual bee. And we're still gonna, actually, we were so happy that the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment were able to accommodate us with the broadcast of that bee. It will be broadcast on Sunday, but I'm not going to give you all those details. I'm just going to stop real quick and show you a quick little preview.
There are 13 ways to spell determination. That's one way for each of the hardworking students who gave it their all and made it to the 39th annual Washington Informer Spelling Bee. This year, these accomplished spellers competed virtually for the chance to take part in the Scripps National Spelling Bee in Orlando, Florida. Find out which of these talented students is spelled W-I-N-N-E-R. Watch the 39th annual Washington Informer Spelling Bee, Sunday, April 25th, 3 p.m. on DKN.
All right, so I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Sitting in front of my computer at 3 o'clock on Sunday to find out, even I know who the winner is, but to find out who the winner is and to share it with all of you all. I'm so excited about this young person who did win the Spelling Bee, and I'm sure you will too. And half of the words, I don't even know, let alone am I able to spell. But anyway, they're fantastic spellers. And so it's a great, great day. You know, yesterday, April the 22nd, was Earth Day. And we are celebrating Earth Day all month long, but we're continuing with our celebration on our show here at WIN TV. And so this show, we're looking forward to having as our guest civil rights activist and environmental activist, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis, who is the chairman, president, and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and most recently named chair of the Energy Alliance. He is credited with coining the term environmental racism. And maybe you all saw the great big spread that the Washington Post did not too long ago, where Dr. Chavis was featured in that issue. And so we are looking forward to talking to him, not only about environmental racism, but some other things that have been going on in our news, as well as Dr. Chantella Sherman, as I mentioned before, our special editions editor, who'll be with us to share highlights from this week's special Restore the Earth supplement that she was responsible for publishing and writing and coordinating that appears this week in the Washington Informer. We will also talk to Dr. Annette Olson, the Chief Executive Officer of Climate Steps and Green Neighbors DC, about greening our neighborhoods and climate change, along with Ayanna Poe, an environmental activist who has some tips of her own about our community gardens, how we can grow them and how we can eat from them. And she leads Cultivate the City 8th Street Farms. So we will jump now. Bring on Dr. Mark Berg. Dr. Berg, you've been with us for the last, you know what we're going through right now, so excuse my exhaustion here, but we're trying to get this together. So we're going to have a quick video and I'll be with you in just a second.
So it's our honor and our privilege to invite you into our new beautiful home at Bluerock Primary Care. I'll now introduce Mark Berg, our CEO, to say a few words.
This is a dream come true. We're surrounded with friends and with the people that help this dream come into reality.
All right. Countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right.
Dr. Berg, are you there? Mark?
I am here. I'm here. Okay. Yes. Hi.
Yeah. Shelby's sitting to my side now as opposed to where she normally is. So we're kind of co-sharing her computer. But thank you for joining us. This is sort of a long road to success. The place is open now. Tell us where you're located.
So we're located at Penn Branch Shopping Center, the Shops at Penn Branch, which is 3230 Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast, heart of Ward 7. And that's where we are. It's a place where there used to be doctors here. A lot of seniors know that and remember the place. And we're honored actually, and feel privileged and excited that we're in this space.
Mark, I mean, first of all, many years ago there was a concern about access to health care, particularly for residents in the District of Columbia that lived east of the Anacostia River.
Yeah.
And it seems as though, you know, we now have facilities that are available to us, but Bluerock, so you're not new coming in, but it was a great expectation that you would come. Tell us about why it's so important for you to be here.
Well, I mean, to your point, right, I think it's actually still true that there's an access issue east of the river. We focus specifically on people that are seniors, people that are on Medicare, and in that phase of your life, you know, our sense is that you really deserve high quality care, and you deserve people to be there when you need it. And for many seniors on this side of the river, that experience is just not really there. I mean, you have to take several buses to get to your doctor, or you have to, 70% of the seniors in Southeast, right, don't have a doctor in this side of the river. And there are about half as many doctors on this side of the river than on the other side of the river. So I think the access issue is still very real. And so we just felt that we wanted to change that, improve the access, but also improve the experience.
Tell me what Bluerock offers.
So what we do is we are a primary care group for patients on Medicare. That's the short of it, right? So if you have Medicare, or otherwise if you're 60 years and older and you're interested in what we have to do, just give us a call. But patients on Medicare, that's our core group because of what I just said, because of the need. And what we do and what sets us aside is that when you come to us, we have an office, but we can also come to your home.
And that's the part I like. When I heard that you all do house calls, who does that in this day and time? But it's why did you all decide to add that as a service?
Well, because that's the thing, right? We believe that if you're older, right, your needs are going to be very different from day to day. And some people happen to have like several chronic conditions, and it's just hard to get out. And especially with COVID, a lot of people don't want to go out. So we felt like if we want to really, live up to our promise that we meet the patient where and when he or she needs the care, then that means we have to be available in the office. We have to be available in their home. And we're also available to do like a video call or, what they call telehealth. And so in that way, it almost doesn't matter what time it is or where you are, but we'll be able to connect, whether you're here, whether we're with you, or whether it's a video connection.
So again, who's eligible to use the services there at Blue Rock?
So if you have Medicare, you can always come in. Regretfully, the only Medicare payer that that does not contract with us is Kaiser, but everybody else, you can always come in. And whether Medicaid, some people have Medicare and then also Medicaid, of course, very, very welcome. And if you're older than 60 and you're interested in this kind of service that we have in the facility and the fact that we're so close by for many people, just give us a call. The number is on the screen.
Wonderful. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we welcome you because, I live and our offices are located east of the river, not in Ward 7, but we're not far from you. I think we welcome you to this community, particularly because we know of the need. And, as I tell most of our guests, not all of them, but most of them, you're always welcome to come back
yeah.
and share more of what you all are doing over there. I know you had a ribbon cutting this week.
Yes.
And so,
we had, you saw in the little video, you saw, and I was proud to see it again because we had Reverend Curry here. We had
Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church.
Yeah, exactly. We had the whole, Anacostia Coordinating Council was here. We had Ambrose Lane of the Health Alliance in Ward 7, and it just feels like we're not just here, as a primary Medicare group, but we're here as a group that is closely embedded with the community to really work on, so the broader health of the community, which is, of course, healthcare, but it's also, nutrition and thinking about that and things like that. And so for us, it's just really exciting to see that coming together and for us to be able to pay attention to that in our individual contact with patients.
Yeah, well, we always say, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to raise a healthy community.
Yes.
And so we're so glad that you're here and now part of the village. And we look forward to exciting things from Bluerock Care. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Honored to have been here.
All righty. So as I said, this is, thank you again, Dr. Burke. It's so glad to have you. But as I said before, this is Earth Day, rather. It was yesterday. We can call it Earth Month because, all month long, I think every entity or organization that has any concern about how we can restore the earth is a part of a movement now to make sure that we will have a place for our children to live safely in months and years to come. So we will go, what's happening next, Sherry?
A video.
Okay, so we're going to go to a quick video, and then after that, we'll be back with Dr. Benjamin Chavis.
Unmute.
All right, we're back making another shuffle here, just trying to get this together this morning. And I am so glad now to bring on a good friend and as I said, the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and one who has a long history, not only in environmental justice, but civil rights, human rights, you name it. He has been on the forefront of all of those activities. So Dr. Chavis, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Denise. And on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, we thank you and the Washington Informer for having these programs informing our community. And your recognition of Earth Day, Earth Month is quite appropriate, given the disparities and given the disproportionate exposure that African Americans and other people of color continue to have as a result of poor environmental policy. I would say some systemic racism in the environmental field. And now that we're dealing with climate change, I'm glad that the United States has rejoined the Paris Accords and has also rejoined the WHO, the World Health Organization, because there's an intersection, Denise, between climate and health. There's an intersection between the social determinatives of health. The CDC this week announced that racism is now a public health crisis in America.
Exactly. Now, the Washington Post, and I'm glad to mention that, went back quite a ways to do a story with you and a situation in North Carolina,
Yes.
in which some folks were concerned about in the area. Tell us about that story. I just want you to fill
Thank you. It
us
was
in
in
on that.
1982. There are 100 counties in North Carolina, and the most predominant black county in North Carolina is Warren County. That's where Floyd McKissick attempted to build Soul City. Warren County is a poor community, but also agriculture. And the aquifer level is very shallow. That means people to get their well water, the water level is very shallow. So that's the last place you want to dig a landfill. But the state of North Carolina dug a big hole in the middle of a black community, and they were going to dump 40 tons of PCB, polychlorinated biphenyl, cancer-causing substance. And of course, this is in 1982. The Wilmington 10, we had just had our convictions overturned in 1980. The last thing I wanted to be was arrested again in North Carolina.
I can imagine.
Duty called, so the United Church of Christ sent me back to Warren County, North Carolina, to lead the protests against these PCBs. And sure enough, I was arrested, along with 500 other people. Reverend Joseph Lowry, Walter Fontroy, Reverend Leon White, there were Dollar Barrel. 500 people were arrested, including myself. So I was in the Warren County Jail, and I said, you know what? This is racism, but this is environmental racism. I kind of conceived the term while I was in jail, but I gave it further definition upon reflection. And then in 1986, 87, we published, that is the United Church of Christ Commission for Racial Justice. By that time, I was the CEO of that organization. We published the first national study on toxic waste and race in America that showed that race was the most determinative factor in the location of toxic waste facilities in the United States. In all 50 states, in all zip codes, we ran a statistical verifiable test. So that's why I coined the term environmental racism, which simply means that there's racial discrimination in environmental policymaking. Environmental racism is the deliberate targeting of people of color communities for these cancer-causing facilities and pollutants. Cancer Alley between Baton Rouge and New Orleans in Louisiana, where 90% of the residents in Cancer Alley have cancer. That's because they're living in proximity of these polluting cancer-causing energy plants. So that's sort of the background of how what happened in Warren County in 1982 now is grown to a national and global movement. It's called the Environmental Justice Movement, the EJ movement, environmental justice. And there are many environmental justice activists now all over the United States, African American, Latino, Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islanders, and it's a global movement now. The United Nations now has a whole committee dealing with environmental justice.
One of the things that when we started doing these sustainability issues was to bring the issue to the community, particularly, I want to say, I guess I'll say poor people, folks who, and rich alike. I mean, it doesn't matter, I guess, economic status, because we're all impacted by the environment. But when you look at places like Flint, Michigan, and other places, like you said, Warren County and other places around the country, it's always seems to be the places where Black and brown people live, and the children are impacted by that as well.
Yes.
Is there has the NNPA gotten itself or looking at this issue as well? What are Black newspapers doing across the country to actually get the word out? Or have there been any partnerships that have been established to make sure that Black communities are included in this whole environmental movement?
That's a great question. And now that we have a young African-American secretary of the EPA, he's from North Carolina also, I think that's a great thing. We should establish those partnerships. I think some of our local NNPA member newspaper publishers are carrying the issue of environmental justice. I know the North Carolina newspapers are definitely on it. Some in Louisiana, I know Terry Jones of the Data newspaper in New Orleans is on it, and Houston. major, most of our Houston papers, and some of our California papers also. So the answer is yes, we are covering the issue, but I do think it's a great opportunity to form some of the partnerships that you mentioned with some of the state environmental agencies as well as the federal EPA.
Right. We have so many places. We mentioned Houston and the flooding that's happened down there repeatedly. And I know that's impacted some of our newspapers there, and the storms
Yes.
and all the things that environmental things that are happening all over the country that are weather related. But we don't always connect them to the environment. And I know that we cover those types of stories as well. I'm glad to have a little bit of your time. And I know that you're going to have to run because you've been busy, I think, doing quite a bit today. But I wanted to see if I could get some comments from you as it relates to the
Sure.
verdict in the Derek Chauvin case this week.
Well, I think that the jury did the right thing by bringing back a guilty verdict on all three charges. But I also want to give the Honorable Keith Ellison a lot of credit. He's the African-American Attorney General of Minnesota. When he left his congressional seat, a lot of people said, man, why are you leaving the CBC to run for a statewide office in Minnesota? He did the right thing. Because it hadn't been for him driving, putting that prosecutorial team together, I doubt if we would have gotten those guilty verdicts. And you saw how confident Chauvin was even during the trial. Didn't show any remorse. Even when he was the guilty verdicts, they put the handcuffs on him and let him out. So I think it's a step in the right direction, Denise. But I think we have to keep stepping, because even while the jury verdict was being announced, other shootings take place. In Columbus, Ohio, shootings in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and other parts of the country. So this systemic racism problem with policing. And that's why there's a call now, urgent call, for the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And we're hoping that the Senate or the House has already passed it. And I think there's a lot now on the Senate's agenda. And I also was glad to see that the House passed the D.C. statehood bill.
Yes.
So, and of course, if we can get statehood for D.C., that means there's 2 more senators.
Right.
And we can break this blockage in the United States Senate. So there's a lot at stake, Denise. And I think that people should be encouraged to continue to raise our voices. I'm going to shout out to the Honorable Maxine Waters, who was outspoken and told people to keep demonstrating. And I know a lot of people came down on Maxine, but she was right. We would not have had that verdict if people had not raised their voices. Black lives do matter. And because Black lives matter, the Black press matters. Black businesses matter. Black communities matter. And so in the context of Earth Day and Earth Month, all of our lives are precious.
I don't want us to sleep one thing before you go, and that is the importance of juries. We talk about, of course, the demonstrations and all that, but it was left up to those 12 jurors to make that decision. And in a lot of cases, even here in the District of Columbia, where the rule is no longer what actually happens, we are not being heard by a jury of our peers, because a lot of our peers don't want to serve on juries. But in this case, it just shows the importance not only of the jury, but the diversity of the jury as well.
Yes.
And do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, the jury was very important. We had African Americans as well as others. We had male and female. So the inclusiveness of the jury is very important, particularly here in the District of Columbia, but anywhere in the country. And I think you're right. Those jurors, it didn't take them long to reach the decision.
Right.
And that was because there was a predominance of evidence presented to the jury. But you're right. Sometimes, even when the evidence is in the favor of the African Americans, we don't get justice because we're not in the jury room. By being in the jury room, I'm glad you made that point, it makes a critical difference.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Chavis, I want to thank you so much for being with us. We have had a calamity of errors over here today. We will want to write about this segment of WIN TV, but we're getting it done. And I appreciate your patience and for actually joining on with us. So,
Well,
and I
thank
want
you.
people to realize, to remember, I want to give a shout out to you as well, because they can see you on the Chavis Chronicles, which is broadcast on PBS,
Yes.
as well as the morning show with Stacey Brown. That's on Facebook as well. Every morning, great programming. You're on as well. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. God bless.
All right. Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Chavis, again. And we're going to now segue back to where we are, what we're celebrating this month, which is environmental justice, sustainability, Earth Day. All of those are important to us this month. And I am so excited to bring on our editor of special issues, Chantella Sherman, who's going to speak with us briefly about our sustainability issue. Got to give a shout out to that. All right. And Chantella, where are you?
I'm here.
Great job, and thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, first of all, you started doing this. You do special issues for us throughout the year, but you wrote a piece in this one to me that just sort of knocked me off my feet, but really put the issue front and center when it relates to, as we talked about earlier, not only the environment, but its impact on health. Two things that really sort of impact people of color more so than anybody else around the globe. But talk to me about what your focus was of your own editorial.
I think initially with the death late last year of Ella Deborah, who's actually in London. She's a 9-year-old girl who died of lung complications, basically lung failure. And the lung failure was due to her proximity to a motorway. So this is a perfectly healthy child whose lungs basically failed her over time. She developed asthma, then it became more severe, and eventually it just caused her lungs to collapse. And no matter how often she was taken to the doctors, it was always, oh, it's just a systemic type of thing. It may be inherited. But her grandparents kept saying, no, this is not the case. It has to be that motorway and where we are. This is something environmental. And it took until December 2020 for a court to actually rule that, in fact, it was that motorway. That when they checked the bloodlines and they checked her relatives and they checked her own health over the course of her short life, just 9 years, there were no complications. Her lungs were perfectly healthy, aside from the fact that she was near this motorway. And so it just kind of pulled upon my heartstrings to think that a lot of times the most disenfranchised have their voices cut from them, and they're the ones who are implicitly in danger. Their feet are in the fire. And because this was a child, you couldn't say things like it was her smoking, or it was something that she had caused or something that she had done. She had lived a perfectly healthy life up until this motorway came through and started to cause issues. So I wanted to make sure that when we started to pull stories together for this supplement, that we focus specifically on young people and disenfranchised folks who don't necessarily have a voice, or who are out there championing and on a very grassroots level attacking the system, but aren't being polarized in the same way that celebrities are, or people who can gain access to the media necessarily. So I think, once again, when you have Black newspapers, that's one of the functions, giving voice to the voiceless. People who are naturally overlooked by the mainstream newspapers suddenly have a way of saying, this is what's happening and please pay attention.
And one of the things you also highlighted in that, when you talk about children, was lead poisoning.
Yes.
And Flint, of course, was where as I mentioned to Dr. Chambers earlier in the show, was where a spotlight was cast on the water there. But we've had our own incidents here in the nation's capital with water coming from our school systems. And I know now there's this big effort to repipe the whole city. But lead poisoning is something that gets into the system and stays. Right. And I think in your article, it said that, you don't see this until much later, but our children are impacted the most by lead poisoning.
Absolutely. And it basically, there's no cure for it. It's a neurotoxin. So basically, when we start talking about testing children in school, sometimes what you're seeing is not that they have learning disabilities, but what you see is the impact of lead water. Lead paint, we started to attack that years ago in the 60s and 1970s, but no one talked about the fact that our piping systems in this country, our infrastructure has been failing for generations, and that lead is actually in the pipes, not only of the schools, but of libraries, in apartments, in shopping centers. So anywhere you go where you're using water, potentially the piping has not been changed over to a point where you're not getting some type of contaminant in there. And specifically, lead is one of the neurotoxins that's there.
We talked again to Dr. Chavis about his role in coining the term environmental racism, but you actually, brought back to our memories, which we need to do quite often, the name Damu Smith, the person of Damu Smith, who was very, very, it was an activist in the environmental movement and human rights movement as well, and who also died early in life. But tell us about Damu and your memories of interviewing him as he was really engaged in the work of protecting the environment.
I think that whenever you say environmental justice, Damu Smith should immediately come to mind. He worked a lot with the National Black Environmental Justice Network, but he was in the trenches. And one of the things that I loved dearly about him was that when he found out certain things about neighborhoods, he went into those neighborhoods to investigate firsthand. And so one area in particular, Dr. Chavis mentioned the New Orleans area. There was a development called Gordon Plaza in New Orleans that the city actually built on top of a dump. And the people there didn't know that the entire area underneath it I think they said there were more than 150 neurotoxins that were there, but there were houses that were built, single family homes, beautiful lush lawns, and you didn't actually know. Schools, hospitals, all of these things were built in this community, but it was literally sitting on top of a dump site. And there were toxins within it. So within a space of maybe 5 years or so, you started to have people who developed different types of cancer until you had a population where 90% of the people there, children, elders, all age groups, were dying from cancer. And this is where Damu placed his feet. He went down there specifically to get them lined up, to take their stories national and international. And during the time that he spent there, that's where it's believed that he actually developed cancer. And although there was some family history of cancer in his family, Damu was a health nut. I love dearly
Yes,
the
he
fact
was.
that
Yes.
he was juicing long before folks were juicing. Everything was ultra holistic. And so even as he was fighting the colon cancer, he was still trying to get to different places, and he was out advocating and trying to teach young folks, and again, people in grassroots spaces where the microphones had been turned off, no one was listening, how to get out and go to their senators and their congressmen and their ward representatives to get action, so that these things didn't continue.
Before we go, I just want to ask, a lot of times as journalists, we go out and we know what we're going after when we write our stories. But sometimes there are things that we find that we just, even shock us. Was there anything when you pulled this issue together that made you say, wow, I never knew that?
Well, I think some of the things, what's past is prologue. So when I looked at the story for one about upcycling, you say, well, what is upcycling? It's when you take food products that are about to get to their expiry and you turn them into something else. Well, Black people have been doing this for forever. And so we talked about the fact that some people would take fruit that's about to go bad and make compote. You sugarize it, you cook it so that you can jar it, and it has a shelf life all its own. Well, now it's called upcycling, and basically grocery stores will say as the food is about to expire, they'll sell it to another company to make dried fruit or to make seasoning or to take the nutrients from it to put it into soups or sauces. Well, this is something, again, that African Americans have been doing since ad infinitum. And so I loved it. Was a very positive story. I'm glad that it's something that's on the uptick. But I would tell a lot of African Americans, return to what your grandparents have always done, because we know how to recycle. We know how to upcycle. And so we just need to get back to some of that as well.
All right, Dr. Sherman. We have two guests coming on after that, and I can kind of see them in the background going. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because we're talking about a farm and we're talking about, green neighborhoods. And I think all of that is just real important on what we do to restore the earth. So I want to thank you publicly for pulling this section together, for being our voice in this environmental justice movement, this Earth Day celebration. And I know we have something coming up, our next issue coming up in May. Speaking of environment and health, our health issue. Have you come up with the theme for that yet?
I think we're dealing with the sugar blues, if I'm not mistaken. I'll need to check the notes, but we need to get Black people off of the sugar hype, and I'm one of them. But we'll start to talk about natural alternatives and things that we need to do health-wise to kind of wean off of sugar.
Wonderful, because we hear all them stories about people getting sick because they got that sugar. So
that's it.
We got to talk about that sugar.
That's it.
All right, thank you, Shantella.
Thanks, Denise.
All righty. Yeah, I tell you, it's when we talk about health, we can't talk about it enough. And unfortunately, Dr. V won't be with us this week. We will have her back on next week. But that's why you will find at WIN TV that we'll be talking about health and the environment quite a bit, in addition to Black history. We like to tie it all together to show that we are all united in these issues. So it's my pleasure now to bring our next guest. Who are we bringing next, Chevy?
Dr. Olson.
Dr. Olson. Okay, there you are. Yes. Thank you. There you are. Green Neighbors, DC Climate Steps. I tell you, it has been, like I said, a calamity of crazy things happening in this office, this show, but I'm glad that you're of your patience. We want you to unmute yourself. There you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to WIN TV.
Thanks. It's nice to be invited to speak. Thank you.
Wonderful. So tell us about Green Neighbors, DC, and what Climate Steps, both of those. What are you all doing?
Yeah, so Green Neighbors DC was formed about 2013 by neighbors in the Petworth, Brookland area who just wanted to, they were green and they wanted to share their experiences and help other neighbors go green, help have speakers. So for many years before COVID, we had speaker events like lead in water, and we had the Department of the Environment come out and speak about how to improve the energy efficiencies of homes, etc. We've also done cleanups. We often do the polar bear plunge in January, which is quite the experience if you haven't done it. It's down by National Harbor. You go and jump in the Potomac River to raise money to fight climate change. All sorts of fun stuff like that.
Wow.
We testified in front of the city council. COVID, it's a little more difficult to do some of those activities. So we've been concentrating on building our website to be a source of information for DC residents about green activities. And we've also been helping the Department of Parks and Recreation do an inventory of their tool share library, which many people don't know about. I didn't know about it before we started looking into tool libraries. And it's only 4 blocks from my house.
And so this means you can go and borrow tools for
Yes.
your gardening or whatever you're trying to do around your community.
It's been operated for years by Department of Parks and Recreation, and they really want to kind of take it to the next level and let people know more about it. But it's gardening tools, it's paper shredders, it's wood chippers, even some solar ovens. There are miter saws. It's beyond garden tools. There are a lot of tools you can check out. It's been closed for COVID, but we're hoping to open it again May 1st. And So we're helping inventory all the tools. We've done that. And now we're investigating software programs to allow people to see what's available through the system. So yeah, and we're hoping to have an open house later, use some of those solar ovens and have a barbecue once everybody's vaccinated for COVID.
Wonderful.
And yeah.
So, one of the things when you talk about discovering, this tool library, the city has initiated a lot of efforts. I mean, some have been voluntary. Of course, we all have our recycling cans, most of us, I should say. And now there are questions about, always consistent questions about what should go in and what shouldn't, what's recyclable and what's not. And then, of course, there's some things that are being mandated, like laws that are prohibiting styrofoam containers of that sort. And so if you were to grade the District of Columbia as a resident, but one who's involved in green issues or climate issues, where do you think we are?
I think we're pretty high up there. We definitely have some issues that DC has plans. It has the Sustainable DC Plan 2.0. It has resilience plan, but we need to see them more in action, especially with developers, doing apartment complexes and stuff. And we need to, because of climate change, which is my other alter ego, not alter ego, it's, shared, put solar panels, even if it's leasing your roof to solar panels, which is very, very convenient. We need to do green roofs. We need to have more trees planted because this city is going to get very hot. And so we need to prepare DC for future climate change. And so I think we've been getting there. We've testified on the Clean Energy Act, and we just testified on a bill about street lighting, which actually impacts people and animals a lot. And but there's more that can be done. But DC's done well. We alternate with Chicago in leading the nation in building green roofs, for instance.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good news. And do you feel, I know that you're in the Petworth area. I'm wondering how widespread do you see, or how diverse do you see the residents of the District of Columbia engaged in this movement? Do you see a representation from all 8 wards? Would you like to see something different, something better? What do you think needs to happen?
Yeah.
Or is happening?
Yeah, Green DCs itself is very small. We've been very diverse, but at the moment, we need more diversity. We're very hyper-local for Northern DC, but we have an intern who just created 2 fact sheets, which I'll be putting on today, that are outlined the environmental justice organizations within DC, and outlined the youth organizations within DC that people could get involved in. Of course, I want to put a plug in and say, hey, we also need help. But yeah, so, but yeah, we want to see chapters within each ward that focus on, local action. One thing that we'd like to do in the future, say, for instance, is put energy efficiency kits together for the elderly. And work with the churches and the local action committees to really bring in, to really focus on like what's happening within this block. Can we help people put in rain barrels? Can we help people, etc.? But we're very small, so right now we're focused on the tool share library. So,
wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll probably reach out to get more information that we can share with our viewers about the tool share library. That would be great. And when you put those documents together, feel free to share them with us so that we can help to share them with our viewers and our readers. Because we can replicate what you all are doing in other boards across the city. And if there are others who are out there doing some things, we certainly do want to hear from you. But I appreciate you being with us and to talk about, the ongoing work that we're doing to restore the earth.
Yeah. So if I can just put in a little statement about climate change and how its impact is going to affect DC, we
Sure.
do need to all pull together for it. Right now, when I moved to DC almost 30 years ago, there were only 10 95 plus degree days a year on average. By 2050, there will be 45 days of 95 plus degrees on average. By 2100, there will be, wait, I wrote this down, there will be 82 days per year of 95 plus degree weather. And so if you think about environmental justice, especially, and you think about, I think of all the elderly women in my neighborhood, the widows who live in houses without even AC units.
Right.
And you've got the construction workers who will be suffering in this heat. So it's it'll be very tied to the health of people within DC. There'll also be increased flooding. The precipitation won't change that much, but we'll have much more severe storms.
Right.
We'll have more infectious diseases and invasive species affecting our food supply.
Oh God.
Yeah. So
yeah. So it means that we all need to sort of get on board and try to help to change this because this is what we have to look for. I already predict we're going to have a pretty hot summer this summer, but it's going to lead to more hot summer and more hot days. So I appreciate you sharing that with us and just letting us know how serious this is, particularly especially for us in the nation's capital. So Annette, thank you so very much for being with us today. We've run out of time, but I appreciate all that you've shared.
Well, thank you.
All righty. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Ayanna Poe is our next guest, who is over there on 8th Street. All right. Cooking and doing stuff. Dr. Sherman talked about what's happening with our food and sort of this upcycle. And you're doing it, you're growing it and recycling and upcycling. Tell us about Cultivate the City, Ayanna.
Yeah, so 8th Street Farms is part of Cultivate the City. It's just a specific location, which is our retail space, but our main mission is provide tools, education, and resources for people to learn sustainable agriculture. We sell plants, but we also mainly teach classes and workshops to teach kind of creative methods and sustainable methods on how you can grow, use the food that you grow. We also support, our main thing is probably education.
Wonderful. And so what's the popular vegetable? What are people growing? And what's the season right now?
So we're starting, the weather is not agreeing with me.
Right.
We're supposed to start getting into things like peas, probably like in another 2 weeks, we can start putting things outside like tomatoes, cucumbers, any of those seasonal veggies that most people typically like. But herb season is any season. So if you want to grow something easy to start with, definitely herbs.
Herbs, yeah, okay. I've killed all mine, so I'm going to try them again because it's great cooking with fresh herbs. It really is. And, they make great gifts. I just thought about that. Someone dropped by some, I think some tarragon yesterday, which I thought was pretty cool. So, but when you talk about cooking with these herbs as well, or planting or when your classes, when do you offer your classes and how often? I know you can't do it right now because of COVID, but are you doing it virtually?
So we're actually doing classes. We do social classes and we've cut them how many people can come, but we have classes just every weekend and we teach the basic classes every month. But we also offer volunteering that, if you gave us maybe like 3 weekends in a row of your time, you're going to learn the same information. We definitely love getting help from the community.
Wonderful. And how do you support community gardens? Because what's one of the things that I think has been especially great to see around the city are these little spots where there are gardens that neighbors have come together or an individual is maintaining. Talk about the community garden or H Street farms.
Gotcha. So we do have a couple spots that we grow at community farms. We do also support a lot of the local people in the area, like we're a hub spot where people can come and get their starter plants. And we definitely supply that. But we also provide, as I was saying, the basics of it. We teach workshops and classes or even just information sessions. We're always open to do consultations and just help people get started in general so they can get their footing in and then take that step by themselves and hopefully trickle it down to other people too.
Where are you located on 8th Street?
So we're on Bladensburg Road, just off of 8th Street.
Okay. All right.
We're on top of W.S. Jenks and Sons, which is the oldest family-owned hardware store in D.C.
And the address there?
Is 910 Bladensburg Road.
Wonderful. And what are your hours?
So we're open every day of the week. Every day, actually. We're open on the weekdays from 9 to 6. 12 to 6. And then Saturday is 9 to 6. Sunday is 9 to 5.
Wonderful. So I could come in there this weekend, buy some tomato plants, and you will tell me if I follow these steps, they should grow and not die.
The most frequent question I get is, I want to plant my garden, but I need you to do it for me.
Well, I won't ask you that.
But I can help you every step of the way.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And how long have you all been there?
So our company is about 6 years old.
Okay.
We've been at this 8th Street location for about 4.5, 5.
Okay. And, just out of curiosity, how did you get interested and engaged in gardening and all of this? I mean, what motivated you to become a part of the farms and Cultivate DC?
Yeah, so I come from a family of horticulturalists, but I would say I mainly got my interest when I started working here. I started interning at first. He does a lot of internships with high schools in the area. And so I was kind of referred by a friend here. And to be honest, he said, I don't care about how much you know, I care about how much you learn. And that was the first time he said that to me. And so I've worked my way up from the bottom. And I would just say, like, his passion for it, the boss, Niraj Ray, the owner, he's super passionate and it's infectious. And, with farming and even gardening, there's always something new to learn and what's effective and what's not. So it's always exciting.
Well, that's great. I am happy for you. Congratulations. And glad you're there to help people like myself and others who know that, a lot of the food that we eat, we can grow in containers or in our own yards. And so all of those tips, I guess, we can get from you or your colleagues when we come to 8th Street Farms. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. Hopefully folks will be coming in and looking for you and getting some tips. And I appreciate your time. And we've into the growing season. So we should start now. And do we have all summer or what's the best time to get going now that the weather looks like it's going to turn sometime next week?
I'm not quite sure about the weather. It keeps fluctuating, but I would say probably in like another you could start planting things now. Like I said, herb season is any season. So if you want to start with those things, but there's other seasonal things, I would say flowers, veggies specifically, you can start doing probably next week.
Wonderful.
I did just want to say one thing.
Sure.
We have a seed and plant swap May 16th where it's a free event. We have different sections that people can sign up for. It's basically, you can come out, you can meet people in the plant community in DC. You can talk to them, you can trade with them. You can walk away with some plants to start of your own. It's just a great event, especially if you want to meet other people in the area in a safe space.
Wonderful. It sounds like an exciting event. When is it again? May 16th. May 16th. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Great. Well, Ayanna, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Good luck. All righty. So we left a couple things off the show this week, and I'm not sure, Chevy, we're going to go with them. Okay, we're going to do that. So I want to thank you all. You know, not every show goes as we expect, and this has been quite a day, but we've gotten it done, and we've had some great guests, and I'm so glad that you all have been with us because, you know, we are talking about our environment. We're talking about our community, and it's so wonderful to have people who care about our environment and want us to help us to find ways that we can show how much what we can do to protect our communities and protect the earth. After you look at our news segment, following that will be, I think, our Black History segment, and then finally WI Bridge, Sounds of the DMV, and What's Happening DC will be coming up after that. So don't go away. Don't go. We've got lots more to entertain you. And until next week, have a great week. Bye-bye.
This is Curtis Knowles with WIN TV News. The White House provides its official backing for the DC's statehood bill. The Senate is currently evenly split on the bill, with Vice President Kamala Harris acting as the tiebreaker. If a tiebreaker happens, a filibuster would ensue, which requires at least 60 votes to pass. The White House is calling for Congress to provide a swift and orderly transition to statehood for the people of Washington, D.C. The United States' vaccination effort might be facing a stall in the near future, as supply is strangely surpassing the demand. The Kaiser Family Foundation reports that vaccine enthusiasm will be reaching a tipping point in about a month. One key to ending the pandemic is herd immunity, which cannot happen with unvaccinated people. Another young Black life was taken by police violence in Columbus, Ohio. Micaiah Bryant was shot 4 times by Officer Nicholas Reardon. Reardon was responding to a call about a potential stabbing. Body cam footage shows Micaiah in an altercation with others when Reardon then brandished his firearm and shot her 4 times in the chest. In a historic verdict, the former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been found guilty on all charges for the murder of George Floyd. Derek's murder of Floyd sparked outrage throughout the world, demanding for police reform. Cheers could be heard outside of the courtroom and around the world when the news of the verdict was given. Reporting live, this is Curtis Knowles with WIN TV News.
Here's another edition of WIN TV's Black Facts. April 23, 1872, Charlotte E. Ray became the first female Black American lawyer as a graduate from Howard Law School. On April 24, 1972, Robert Wedgeworth was named the first African American director of the American Library Association. April 25, 1917, female jazz singer Ella Fitzgerald was born. April 26, 1892, Sarah Boone became the first Black woman in history to receive a patent, creating the initial model of what is known today as the ironing board. On April 27, 1927, Coretta Scott was born in Marion, Alabama. On April 28, 1971, Samuel Lee Gravely Jr. became the first Black admiral in the United States Navy. And on April 29, 1945, Richard Wright's Black Boy reached first place on the National Bestseller Book List.
Reporting from the Washington Informer, this is Lindiwe Vilakazi.
It's Friday, and the best part of the weekend is knowing everything that has happened, is happening, and is going to happen. And that's so Mary had a little lamb. Find out how you can get your pocket tickets waived, DC, and find out which DMV artist Cardi B shouted out. I'm your boy, the Media Prince, and this is what's going on, DC. First up, DC will restart parking enforcement June 1st. I could hear some of y'all like, man, I was already getting tickets this whole time. Well, secretly, you could have been disputing them. And oh yeah, if your license expired during the pandemic, you have till July 1st, or it's Metro for 500, Alex. To the better side of that, Mayor Bowser announced a 4-month amnesty program to give DC drivers and non-DC drivers an opportunity to pay outstanding tickets. Now come closer. During the period, all penalties will be waived. So that $400 ticket that maybe had tripled just reverted back to $100. Child, if y'all don't pay these tickets, the DC Court of Appeals vacates gun conviction. No illegal stop and searches on our watch. The DC Chancellor just proposed renaming Woodrow Wilson High School to August Wilson High School after the celebrated Black playwright. Now that's what I'm talking about. This idea comes from years of students and alumni calling the city to remove Woodrow Wilson's name. Next up, our Southeast Goddess explains her hair journey, and I think all of our viewers will enjoy this. Take a look.
I get the movie Baby Boy, and I had about this much new growth. And I remember saying, oh my God, don't my roots, it's nappy. And she smacked her hand and she said, don't say that about your hair. Your hair is not nappy, it's curly, it's beautiful. It made me embrace myself definitely. What it taught me that day was that I'm not my hair. And my hair does not make me.
This Saturday, the Washington Nationals will be having a drive-through play ball event for ages 4 to 18. Now, if you love baseball like me, and you love the Nationals like me, go out now and enjoy. You can register at playball.org/events. In music, DMV's own IDK gets a shout out from the Cardi B. Lit, right? Also, Asian Doll says she likes how DMV dudes dressed and act. I'm just feeling a nice win for the DMV right now. How do y'all feel? Another win for us in the music scene here, DMV's own Smash Brothers were just added to ESPN Music's music playlist. Hey, I told you we just keep on winning. In alrighty news, Maryland inmates can now earn a bachelor's degree from Georgetown University. Hey DC, on a serious note, are you seeking rental and utility assistance? I know the pandemic has been very real for us all, and that's why Stay DC is here to help. Find out details at stay.dc.gov. Now let's end the week on an epic turn. Sponsored by the Washington Performing Arts, the ISO Flow Band takes over our beloved Union Station with some monumental magic. Take a look.
We're gonna dance, turn down the light. Yeah. We're gonna bring the party tonight. Yeah. We're gonna move, we're gonna shout. We came together to let it all out. Yeah. Let it all out. Yeah. Let it all out. Yeah.
Now wasn't that lit? Pure DC art magic throughout the Union Station. And that's what I'm talking about. Now, thank you guys for tuning in to yet another week of What's Going On DC. I'm your boy, the Media Prince. For all this and more, head over to wibridgedc.com and make sure to follow our hashtags, WIBridgeTMP Style, to get all the latest looks. You know. And also follow the hashtag WGODC to stay caught up on what's going on DC. Until next week.
Animosity. KK on the beat. She make it sound so sweet. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Here is that whistle, here is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Here is that whistle, here is that. All you lip with these skip figures thinking that you big pimpin'. Acting like y'all jigger. Y'all don't give a chance to even be a gold digger. I'ma be down on my luck, which I broke. So I'ma keep spitting shit. I'ma keep ripping it. This hardcore written shit should never be forgetting it. Yeah. At the end of the day, when it's plain to see, you gon' do you, sweetie, and I'ma do me. I'm animosity. You should remember the name. The that came through and put a twist in the game. I'm getting splifted and lifted. I got love for all y'all. If I don't feed you, I don't need you with my back to the wall. So chop it and screw it and do it how you do it, and then head to the block. It don't stop until you do it. with it. Now who cares what a hater gotta say? If they come my way, it's a flag wanna play. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Here is that whistle, here is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Here is that whistle, here is that whistle. Oh, shit about to get real, it's really gonna get awful. Cause you are not my slime, cause you greedy and you disloyal. You think you slicker than oil, but not on my watch. I'm the cream of the crop, new queen on the block. Yeah, I gave you the corner, now you want the whole block. But normally that's the good thing, expanding your crops. But not when you greedy, taking cookies out the pot. If you down, then be down, then learn how to move smart. And I ain't even talking about the favors that I gave you. Admit I took you out the hood and juiced up your flavor. Now I ain't saying I took you from rags to riches. I pulled you out the trenches, I upgraded your stitches. I told you how to move around real boss. Yeah, I said bitch, but you know I meant queen. And with the boss in front, you know it mean the same thing. If you ain't talking money, you ain't talking to me. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Here is that whistle, here is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Here is that whistle, here is that whistle. Flag wanna play, all you hear is that whistle. Here is that whistle, here is that. Flag wanna play, flag wanna play, flag wanna play. Don't care what nobody say. Flag wanna play, I'm calling flag wanna play. Flag wanna play, don't care what nobody say, yeah. Living in DC has affected the type of music I make because, first of all, my father is a legend of DC's music, go-go. I don't really mention it because I want to be Sweet Animosity all alone. Not saying that, my father lit all that, but I want to be who I am individually. So I don't really tell people that to the last minute. But my father is Big Tony from Trouble Funk, DC's own go-go. So that's what inspired me to get into music. I came up with my name because I'm a loving, giving person. I'm so sweet, but I also go 0 to 100 real quick. So it's Sweet Animosity. And most of the time the animosity is coming from me either taking up for somebody, standing up for something that is not right. It's not just like being bitter or, it's just for a good cause all the time. Like always defending my friends in school, always defend the right thing. So Sweet Animosity is what you get. I definitely have some new projects coming out. I have a project of my own that's about to drop called Pretty Vulgar that's produced by KK on the beat. Kenilworth Katrina, that's DC's own Kenilworth Katrina. She also produced Flag on the Play as well as Cash App. You can catch those tunes on iTunes, any major platform, YouTube, you can catch that. And also I have a song coming out with Trife from Trife Gang, and it's called The Gang, and I'm so looking forward to that. My social media, Facebook is Tammy Dimples Blueford. My Instagram is sweet_animosity, sweet SWEET _animosity ANIMOSITY. And you can find me there, some hot fire, good details, good resources, all that.